Alex Proyas made such wonderful movies as The Crow and I, Robot. But have you ever wondered what would happen if the man would write himself instead of just adapting? Did you ever watch a horror movie that wasn't really a horror movie, or the nightmares of your childhood would just slowly morph into the nightmares of your adult life? I'm not talking about paying bills, I'm talking about Pinhead, though I will admit it sometimes feels like someone is hammering nails into my head. What if there was a movie that the Wachowski siblings shamelessly ripped off and got away with it? Of course they didn't, Your Honor, cross my heart and all that, but what if the result was not as good as the original one? What if you decided to tell a film noir detective story from the point of the fugitive? Well, if you did all that, you'll end up with Dark City. Welcome, I'm Stephanie. When I watched Dark City for the first time, it was right after it came out on VHS. I watched it with a friend, and after half an hour I asked, "Do you know what is going on?" And he responded with, "No clue, but it's good, keep it running." If you would ask me what my favorite movie is, I would say Gattaca, Prestige, and Dark City. When asked why, I'd tell you that to me the story is so much more important than special effects and themes, and this is why modern movies suck. But is it nostalgia that fogs my mind? Is it that I know more about storytelling now than I knew back then, and that I give certain movies a pass because there was something special back then? Or do those old movies still hold up when judging them by today's standards? And so today I take off my rose-tinted glasses and answer the question, Dark City, was it actually any good? The movie starts with the camera pointing at the night sky, slowly panning down to Earth, and a voiceover by Kiefer Sutherland as Dr. Daniel Schreiber to set the scene. In the beginning there was darkness, then came the strangers, a race as old as time itself. They had the ability to alter physical reality, or as they call it, tuning. They had abandoned their world to find a cure for their own mortality, to save their declining civilization. On Earth, they thought they had found the solution. Dr. Schreiber confesses that he is helping them, having betrayed his own race while he appears in the picture, taking out a watch. It is close to midnight. We see a bustling city at night, cars, trains, people, while the music perks up in a dramatic tune. And as the watch turns to 12, everything stops. The music becomes ominous. We see the cars stop and people falling asleep on the spot. And after the title flashed in, we zoom towards a hotel bathroom. A man is lying in a bathtub, blood on his forehead. Confused, while the ceiling light is still swinging, he gets dressed and leaves the bathroom. Slipping, he crashes the goldfish bowl. He takes the goldfish and places it in the bathtub, so it doesn't die, showing his unwillingness to take a life. He searches the room, walking past a weird-looking broken syringe, finding a suitcase with the initials KH. In it a postcard of Shell Beach, having a memory of himself being at Shell Beach as a child. The phone rings. It's Dr. Schreiber. He tells him that there was an experiment that went wrong. This is why he had lost his memory. He warns him that there are men on the way to him. He is in danger. He must run. He walks around the bed to find a woman, murdered. Someone had drawn several spirals onto her white skin with her blood. He runs out of the room as the lift reaches his floor. He runs into the other direction, down the stairs, as 3 pale men in black coats and hats walk out of the lift. We will learn later that these are the strangers. He reaches the lobby of the hotel just as the chimes of the clock start to ring, and everybody wakes up. The tension gets released, as the hotel manager tells him that the automat called. Apparently he left his wallet there. He calls him Mr. Murdoch and lets him know he stayed at the hotel for 3 weeks, while everyone in the lobby is waking up. No one seems to think it odd, apart from Murdoch, who looks into the register to find himself listed as J. Murdoch, which we'll later find out stands for John. John promises to pay the bill on his return and leaves. He throws his suitcase into the canal. Back at the hotel manager walks up to the room to find the strangers there. They ask for Mr. Murdoch, and after the hotel manager tells them that he had just left, one of them, Mr. Hand puts his hand onto the manager's forehead, telling him to sleep. He falls unconscious immediately. We cut to a nightclub where Jennifer Connelly sings Sway on stage. When she gets off stage, a woman hands her a card saying it's from her husband's doctor, who wants to talk to her. It is the card of Dr. Schreiber. She proceeds to his office, where he addresses her as Emma Murdoch. Dr. Schreiber is standing in front of a weird-looking rat maze. As she inquires what it is, he explains, it is an experiment. Dr. Schreiber acts like John's psychiatrist, making Emma fill in the blanks. They had marital problems, and 3 weeks ago he packed a suitcase and left. Dr. Schreiber says he had a complete mental breakdown, lost his memories, and should he contact her, she needs to tell Dr. Schreiber right away. The police arrives at the hotel. The hotel manager is now a different person. The inspector in charge is Frank Boomstead, played by William Hurt. Inspector Boomstead was called in because the other inspector was freaked out by this one. The victim was the 6th call girl killed so far. Boomstead finds the goldfish in the bathtub, asking what kind of man would save a fish after he killed a woman. A man runs into the hotel room screaming conspiracy dogman like there is no way out. This man turns out to be Eddie Walensky, the detective looking into the case before. He seems to have completely lost his mind. John goes to the automat to retrieve his wallet. The guy in the back puts it in one of the compartments, but it doesn't open. When 2 policemen enter, John must bite down his panic and opens the compartment as it seems with his mind. When he wants to leave, the policemen stop him, asking where he is off to. He gets saved by a call girl that eyed him when he was going in. The policemen call her May and let her take him out. When she wants him to come with her, he hesitates. As she undresses in the next room, John checks out his wallet. He finds a picture of Emma, saying that he hopes she is still alive, and finding his first name on his driver's license. When May turns around to refresh her lipstick, John leaves. On the street, he finds an advertisement board for Shell Beach. He climbs up to the walkway in front of the advertisement board and nearly falls through one very decaying slab. He then finds news clippings of the murders in the pocket of his coat. As he drops them, the strangers join him on the walkway in front of the advertisement board. Mr. Hand, played by the wonderful Richard O'Brien, by the way, tries to make John fall asleep as he did with the hotel manager, but it doesn't work. He takes out a knife, but as he walks forward, the sled gives way, making him fall through. As the other 2 walk towards him, John uses his psi abilities again to break more of the walkway, making the strangers realize that John can tune. John runs. Beneath the earth we'll find the lair of the strangers, who are led by Mr. Book, played by Ian Richardson, who in this makeup and costume reminds me of a mix of the Grey Gentleman from Momo and Pinhead. Mr. Hand reports that John can indeed tune. He continues with that sometimes the imprint doesn't take hold, and the doctor hasn't reported in since. Mr. Book wants John captured. We switch to Emma's apartment. John is there. Emma learns that John indeed has amnesia. She gives him Schreiber's contact information. When John asks why he was seeing him, Emma confesses that she had an affair, and John was understandably angry with her. Dr. Schreiber is in a bathhouse, where Mr. Hand finds him. Schreiber tells him that John woke up while he was trying to imprint him. Mr. Hand wants another syringe with the imprint of John Murdoch, but tells Schreiber that it is not to try and imprint our current John again. They will continue their experiments while they are looking for John. We also learn the strangers don't like moisture. We go back to Emma and John. Emma tells John the police is looking for him. He tells her about May, that he wanted to test himself. He says he is still himself, which is only funny when you already know the solution of the movie, and that he is not a killer. When he sees the police car in front of the house, he wants to leave, but Boomstead is already in the hallway, gun out. John says he will not come in. No one would believe his story. Boomstead asks his story, and John tells him that there are men after him who want to kill him, and that he is not a murderer. Before anything else can happen, Emma flings herself against Boomstead and tells John to run, which he does. Boomstead follows. In the basement, John creates a door in the wall and runs into the street. As Boomstead reaches the same room, the door is gone. He finds the card of Dr. Schreiber, which John had lost. In the taxi, John sees a snow globe of Shell Beach. When he asks the driver how to get there, the driver can't quite remember. When John arrives at Schreiber's house, he is just leaving, talking to Bumstead. Bumstead says John doesn't strike him as a murderer. Bumstead leaves and John follows Schreiber into an alley where a door appears in the wall and Schreiber vanishes through it. The door disappears after. He follows Schreiber into a kind of lab of the strangers, where they prepare documents, keys and all kinds of personal items. Schreiber is mixing liquids to create the new memory to imprint on a human, where Mr. Brooke arrives and asks why Murdoch doesn't sleep during imprinting. Schreiber suggests he might be a step up in evolution. He might adapt to his new life situation. Mr. Brooke thinks it ludicrous to assume a human could reach their ability to tune, but Schreiber says this is what they are looking for, isn't it? The ability to adapt. The strangers then hold time to change around everything. The building change, the people get new sets of memories, and all of this is observed by Murdoch. He confronts Schreiber. Frustrated, he uses his psi powers. Dr. Schreiber wants to teach him, because he wants to take back the city and defeat the strangers. As a door appears in the wall, John runs, before the strangers see him, just as the city returns to life. The strangers found Murdoch's influence stopping them from finishing the tuning. Their idea is to imprint Mr. Hand with the mindset of Murdoch, the husband of Emma, the murderer of call girls, to make it easier to find him. Mr. Wall points out that this is ludicrous, as Murdoch never was imprinted, but they think that knowing all the people he will seek out will help finding him. On the back of the postcard, John finds a message from Carl. He then remembers a restaurant in Shell Beach belonging to a Carl Harris, which also leads back to the initials on the suitcase he threw into the canal. When he asks the vendor at a newsstand for directions, he finds the guy who was the hotel manager when John woke up. He asks how long the man is working there, and he says for 25 years. The strangers then visit May to ask for John Murdoch. She doesn't know the name. She only knows John. Mr. Hand, overcome by the personality of John Murdoch, kills May. In the subway, John looks at the map and finds the green line going to Shell Beach. He switches cards, but the green line stops before reaching Shell Beach. Another passenger tells him he needs to take the express, but the express doesn't stop. He meets Eddie, who fills in the blanks. There is no way out of the city. They swap around everyone's memories, but sometimes someone wakes up and knows what is going on. Eddie tells him he found a way out, right before he jumps in front of the express. The strangers search John's apartment, where Mr. Hand has a memory of John meeting Emma. He goes there and finds Emma looking over the canal. After a short conversation, he leaves her unharmed. Emma goes to the ottoman and finds May's place opposite of it. She finds May dead, and just as she runs out, she bumps into Bumstead, who had followed her. John is breaking into an aquarium that belongs to Carl. He introduces himself as John's uncle. They are looking at old pictures of John at Shell Beach. John grew up there. His uncle doesn't remember how to get to Shell Beach because of his age, as he says. Carl tells him his parents died when the house burned down. Uncle Carl raised him after that. In one of the pictures, John has a burn scar on his upper arm. The scar isn't there. John realizes he is not in fact John. Bumstead calls in the murder, which Emma now seems to be convinced was committed by John. Strictly speaking, that is true. When in his car, Emma sees Bumstead's accordion, which was given to him by his mother, who passed away recently. Bumstead says it's weird that he can't remember when she gave it to him, remembering what Eddie said about memories. Carl leads John to his old room. When John notices it's almost midnight, he wonders why he can't remember the day. It always seems to be dark. When he finds a notebook from his childhood, which according to his uncle, John has always drawn in, he finds it empty. Carl then calls Emma to let her know John is with him, just as she arrived home with Bumstead. She and Bumstead immediately drive over, but Mr. Hand had overheard the call and is also on his way. It turns midnight. Time stops. As John is fleeing his uncle's house, he runs into Mr. Hand. John initially overwhelms him and learns just a bit more, that the strangers have built the city from different decades, different memories, and refine it every night to learn what it means to be human. He also tells John that they use their dead as vessels, which is doubly creepy seeing that one of them is in the body of a child. While the city is changing, Mr. Hand can push John off. John makes a run for it. Time starts running again, and just before the strangers catch John, Boomstead drives on and saves him. Emma and John hug. And this is the first time where something doesn't add up, because it felt before that Emma believes John to be the murderer. On the other hand, there are more than enough people who would let that slide. At the police station, Boomstead is questioning John about May. He then also asks him about the notebook, which John now finds has drawings in it. Boomstead is trying to understand the puzzle, but John tells him nothing makes sense. He asks if Boomstead remembers the way to Shell Beach. He can't. Then he asks him if he remembers doing something during the day. Boomstead can't. He says there must be an explanation. John uses his psi abilities to make the notebook float, and asks Boomstead to explain that. When Boomstead is congratulated on catching the killer, the strangers are entering the police station. Boomstead gets Murdoch out before they can get to him. Mr. Hand kills the police chief, which can be seen as an escalation of Mr. Hand's behavior due to the imprint of John Murdoch. Boomstead and Murdoch visit Schreiber in the bathhouse. Dr. Schreiber has created an imprint that he says would explain everything, but understandably John doesn't want to use it. He puts it into his trenchcoat pocket before Boomstead and John force Dr. Schreiber to bring them to Shell Beach. Schreiber explains that nothing outside the city is real, and when they finally reach Shell Beach, it is just a wall with a poster on it. Boomstead and Murdoch knock the wall down to find themselves looking at outer space, when the strangers arrive with Emma as a hostage. A fight ensues, during which Mr. Wall and Boomstead get sucked out into space. Here, for the first time, we can see the city from above, a space station that is protected by an energy field. Mr. Hand threatens to kill Emma if John keeps resisting. John gives up, and when Mr. Hand tells him to go to sleep, he does. John is taken beneath the city into the lair of the strangers. Here it is decided that John is to be imprinted with the collective memories of the strangers to become one of them and solve the problem of their demise. But instead Schreiber takes the syringe out of John's pocket and injects him with that imprint. The fabricated memories are of John growing up learning how to control his tuning so that he can fight the strangers on equal footing. When he wakes up, the battle begins. The strangers get sucked out into space and Mr. Book gets pushed into a water tank, as Schreiber had told him the strangers don't like water. When the battle is done, John starts changing the city for the better. He creates a beach surrounding the city. Schreiber informs him that Emma no longer exists. She has been imprinted with another personality. When John travels to Shell Beach, he meets her anew under the name Anna. Before that, though, he meets a dying Mr. Hand and tells him that they were looking in the wrong place, pointing at his head, implying a human soul is not in the brain. The story is extremely tightly written. Every scene sets up several different things that will all become relevant later, and everything relevant later is set up beforehand. It is, for example, said twice that the strangers don't like moisture or water. Schreiber says it's almost a phobia, which gives John the idea to push Mr. Book into the water during their battle. John wanting to go to Shell Beach, as it is the only thing he semi-remembers, leads him to asking everyone for it, just to figure out that no one remembers the way. When John is trying out different names with Jay, trying to remember his actual name, he also tries out John, but doesn't have a different reaction than to Jason or Justin, showing that John is not who he really is or ever was. Nothing seems to add up, if you really look at it. Alex Proyas took all writing rules to heart. Foreshadowing, setup and payoff, Chekhov's gun, you name it, it is there. He even gives John a save the cat, or in this case, the goldfish, moment to make sure we immediately sympathize with him, just in case anyone thought John is the murderer. The characters talk to one another. The story doesn't just happen because people have different information and just don't share. I'm looking at you, Stranger Things. The character work is one of the best I have ever seen. Part of this is writing, part is a phenomenal cast. John Murdoch is the tabula rasa character, waking up with no memories of his own, as he was wiped but not imprinted. What we see is a new personality that needs to be built from the ground up. Rufus Sewell is a wonderful actor who sways between panic, desperation and the undying wish to make sense of it all. He is stumbling just enough to be believable, but not so much to be annoying. He is a character we can root for. While this wasn't Rufus Sewell's first movie, it was the first movie I saw him in, and the man left an impression. Just like the writing of the character is so detailed and nuanced, so is his acting, leading to a very believable performance. Kiefer Sutherland as Dr. Daniel Schreiber was a bold choice with a big payoff. At the time best known as David from The Lost Boys and Nelson Wright from Flatliners, I think no one would have pictured him as a character like Schreiber, a nerdy, cowardly scientist with a disfigured face and a limp. Indeed, Kiefer Sutherland thought they sent the script to him by accident, and it was supposed to go to his father, giving him the perfect opportunity to prove that he is no less talented. In that it is perfectly believable that Schreiber wants to escape the terror of the strangers, but is himself too much of a coward to take them on, seeing the perfect chance with John, as he can tune. Jennifer Connelly is perfect for Emma Murdoch, feeling guilty for cheating on him, which is the memory imprinted on her, not what she actually did. She is trying to make amends as she loves her husband. This love seems to stem from the memories imprinted in her. The love itself was not fabricated. Going with the theme, there is something in us that can't be erased. It is never called a soul. It is, however, implied as something like that. Indeed, John not reacting well to be imprinted with the memories of a serial killer might as well come from that personality being so different from who he is. Even after her memory is changed and she becomes Anna, she is still the kind, caring person that Emma was. The songs Sway and The Night Has 1,000 Eyes are performed by Anita Kelsey, so I'm not saying Jennifer Connelly can't sing, but it is possible. William Hurt is playing the perfect film noir detective. Having a lonely life and being focused on details to solve the case, he makes all the good decisions in who to trust and what to believe. Hurt brings in a very solid performance, and had they decided to make the same film a year later with the same cast from the perspective of Boomstead, I would have watched it. This is how the movie was first planned, before Alex Proyas decided to have John Murdoch as the main character and invited Lem Dobbs and David S. Goyer, who had just worked on Blade, to help him rewrite the screenplay. Hurt was originally planned to play Schreiber, but I think the right decision was made, as his portrayal of Boomstead is spot on. Alex Proyas said he pictured Richard O'Brien when he was writing Mr. Hand, and after meeting with him, he didn't regret this decision. O'Brien is singularly suited to play this character, being able to give off the right amount of creepy and dangerous. In fact, he was the reason I wanted to see the movie so badly. Alex Proyas had seen him in the Rocky Horror Picture Show beforehand. You know, like we all have. Even the side characters, however, are still well cast, no matter if it is Ian Richardson as Mr. Book, Bruce Spence as Mr. Wall, Colin Friels as Eddie Valansky, John Bluthal as Carl Harris, and last but not least, Melissa George as May. The world building gives us as much as we need and nothing more, which is the right amount. The film starts with the voiceover of Dr. Schreiber. The voiceover, as well as the city falling asleep, was originally not at the beginning of the movie, to make it even more ambiguous. New Line, however, was concerned that the audience wouldn't understand the movie and asked Proyas to add the voiceover, which he did grudgingly. The director's cut therefore starts without it. I agree with Proyas here, as it would have been more interesting to ask myself throughout the first half of the movie if John is the murderer or not, and if Valansky is just insane. We never learn if the test subjects were bred for the experiment, how long they already live in the city, if they were taken from Earth, or why the strangers never settled for one style of city, as even Dr. Schreiber had to delete the memories of his past life. And we don't need to know this. It is implied, if not explicitly said, that John evolved, as humans are capable to adapt to their surroundings, which makes sense. He didn't start out super special, magic awesome. He was not even the first to resist the imprint. He was just the first to develop the ability to tune. He is not the chosen one. Looking at you, Matrix. The city is a mixture of different designs in places and decade, all of it with a touch of grimy film noir and horror. It therefore looks like everywhere and nowhere and doesn't let us know which period this movie takes place in, which again is not required to understand the movie, as it is about human nature versus nurture, playing with the thought that we are not just a sum of our memories. The film takes inspiration in Plato, Robert Wiene's Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, and Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau's Nosferatu. The style reminds of Terry Gilliam's Brazil and every film noir ever created. Camera and lighting are close to that of a horror movie, so is the makeup of The Strangers. I want to say this clearly, this is not a horror movie, it was just filmed like one. The green tint of the bathroom scene, as well as the swaying ceiling light just in the first scene, could be out of a horror movie. This is, I think, why film noir and horror go so well together, just like Hellraiser Inferno. The music by Trevor Jones, known for giving us the score of movies like Excalibur, Runaway Train, The Dark Crystal, or In the Name of the Father, switches back and forth from highly aggravated to creepily ominous and underlines every scene perfectly. The movie had a budget of $27 million. In comparison, Independence Day, that was released 2 years earlier, had $75 million. The Matrix, a year later, had $63 million. They made do with what they had, however. The special effects hold up remarkably well, at least when the city is tuned. The psi abilities look a bit cheap and the end fight could have had a bit more flair, but all in all, it is solid. The movie was mostly well received by critics at the time and sits at a comfortable 76% on Rotten Tomatoes today, getting 85% from the audience and a solid 7.6 on IMDb. Alas, the box office was bad, and the movie needs to be considered a flop at $27.2 million. In my opinion, and this is just from my memories, it probably was achieved by not advertising it much. I can't remember seeing a single trailer, and back in the day I went to the movies every week. And I would have noticed, since I was looking for the movie. When I asked the theater when Dark City would arrive, I was told, oh, it was in last week for 3 days. No one watched it, so we took it out of the bag and shot it out of mercy. I'm not going to lie, New Line. If you don't tell people about your movie, people are not going to watch it. So after everything is said and done, was Dark City a good movie? I think I can answer that with a solid yes. The writing holds up, the acting is superb, and the movie has an extremely good pacing at a runtime of 100 minutes. This movie should be the standard every other movie should look up to. If you are looking for a movie that can run in the background while you are playing on your phone, the movie is not for you. If you are looking for a gem amongst science fiction, then here it is. My final rating for Dark City is therefore better than Matrix, out of 10. Have you seen Dark City? What are your thoughts? What is your favorite science fiction movie? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like what you've seen, consider pressing my buttons and ringing my bell. Thank you for listening, goodbye and good night.